That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Marvin. He scores. 17 seconds left. And he was fouled.
Here we go. Lawson with a runner. No. The rebound. Hansbrough at the gun. Got it.
They were 4 for 24.
Hansbrough on a switch on Paulus. A deep three. And Green rips down the rebound in traffic. 4-on-1.
What a great job. What a terrific job in transition. I mean, you couldn't plan that any better as a coach.
Tipped away by Johnson. It's loose. Page. Johnson.
They're dancing in the aisles. They're high-fiving. They're celebrating. They're going bananas on Franklin Street.
Pass to Britt, 15 seconds to play. Up high to Page, gets a screen from Meeks. Page driving in on the left, high off the glass for two. Louisville with 7 seconds. Jones has it, goes left corner, Black's here for three. Back iron, 1 second to play. Stick up, no! Carolina wins it! Victorious win it! 72-71. 6 seconds to go. Pinson comes front court. Pinson to May for the win. Got it! Luke May! He got it! 0.3 of a second! Luke May gives Carolina the 75-73 lead.
Are you kidding me?
Inside 30 overall. Love, top of the key. Oh! Big time delivery.
Here are your hosts, Josh Marlowe and Anthony Pagnotta.
Hello and welcome into another edition of the Four Corners Podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Just Josh here with you for the second podcast of this Friday. We got to recap the press conference Hubert Davis held this afternoon at the Dean Dome before Carolina began to make their way to Atlanta for tomorrow's road game at Georgia Tech. I have 7 sound bites that I pulled from Hubert's presser that we will play for you, and I will kind of react to what the head coach of Carolina basketball had to say. Before we get to that, though, we start every edition of the pod, as we always do, with the pod thought of the day. It's the second pod of the day, which means you get a second pod thought of the day. We go to Greg Popovich for that pod thought. That thought is, quote, "It's not about any one person. You've got to get over yourself and realize that it takes a group to get this thing done," end quote. And I was really trying to find a quote to kind of set the theme for the press conference that Hubert Davis held. And this was a very, I'll say pointed is the way I felt like Hubert Davis was in his presser. He's usually very relaxed, very comfortable, very jovial with the media. And I'm not going to say that he was tense with the media, but I think you could tell the head coach knew, hey, we had a week off. We had a chance to get better in practice, but he knows what the calendar reads. It's the end of January, folks. We're a week away from the first of 2 Duke games. For a lot of people, the college hoop season begins when Carolina and Duke first play, and from that point on, man, it's all gas, no brakes, getting you to Selection Sunday. And so I think he wants to kind of get that message across to his team. We're about halfway through conference play, but there's still more work to be done for us to get where we want to get to and make this a special season. And, look, we've spent so much time, talking about Caleb Wilson and maximizing him individually. Last year, my main message was not to waste RJ Davis, but at the end of the day, it's a team effort. It's a group thing. It's going to take players, coaches, support staff, fans, podcast hosts, bloggers, writers, reporters, whatever, to really be a part of what could be a special 2 months for Carolina basketball. That's what we're hoping when this team gets back into action tomorrow afternoon against Georgia Tech. A reminder, that game comes your way 2 p.m. over on the ACC network. Let's go ahead and get right into the media session that Hubert held today with fellow reporters at the Dean Dome. It's something that I hope to maybe be able to do a little bit more next year. I get to go to games and I get to be a part of the post-game stuff. Would like to be a part of some of the pre-game stuff leading up to some of these matchups that he meets with the media with before Carolina takes the floor. first thing I want to play for you guys is that that pointed message I was kind of alluding to when Hubert Davis kind of, addressed what his team to the message was this week in practice leading up to tomorrow afternoon's game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an energy, effort, enthusiasm, will, and want to, attention to detail guy. So bring that every day at practice. And I always believe, when you step on the floor, there's an opportunity, a chance always to move a step forward, to being the best that you can be. And that's something that as a group we talked about a lot. I'll be honest with you. Yesterday at practice, I showed him a clip of Drake May. It was this thing on Instagram, and he talked about how hard it is. And his coach said, yeah, I know it's hard, but if we can figure out how to get this thing done, this will be the best, 6.5 minutes of your life. And I referenced that. And I said, guys, it's hard. It's hard to win. It's hard to practice. It's hard to box out. It's hard to talk on defense. It's hard to sprint to offense. It's hard to get to the offensive glass. It's hard to make open shots. It's hard to get to the free throw line. It's hard to play here. It's hard. And that's good. And that hardness is something that you have to walk towards and embrace. And I told the guys, I said, I know it's hard, but if we can figure out how to get this done the next 2 months, this is something that could be impactful for the rest of your life.
There may not have been a thing he has said publicly before, after, during a game I loved more. It's incredibly hard to play here because of guys like me that expect and demand so much. Guys like you that expect and demand so much. But the reward is it's life-changing. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not being dramatic. But when you win at Carolina and you put a banner up, many times when you come back to Chapel Hill, you're going to get stopped in the street. You're going to get your picture taken. You're going to get your autograph taken. And whatever you're eating, drinking, or whatever, you ain't going to have to buy it, man. Because Carolina fans are going to be like, thank you for that natty. Here, that drink's on me. Thank you for that natty. Oh, that steak's on me. Whatever it is. And so, what we ask is a lot. But the reward is so much better. And I think that's a great message for this group in this day and time with the NIL and the transfer portal and revenue sharing, where we're paying you $2 million to box out. We're paying you $1.5 million to shoot 38% from three. And that's a lot. And it's hard. But if you do it and we achieve the goals that we've outlined, ACC regular season championship, ACC tournament title, get to a Final Four, it's going to change your life. And I love that from Hubert. And I hope that this roster was very receptive to that, because he experienced that. He went to a Final Four. He knows how impactful that was for the rest of his basketball life and the rest of his professional life. So I thought that was a great way to kind of set the tone for this press conference. And we'll follow it up. Something he's been very vocal about has been the emergence of Caleb Wilson as a leader. And we had Shelby Swanson on earlier this week. Does a great job covering Carolina for the News and Observer. She kind of detailed that process and seeing it start in California, but carry over last week with a bunch of meetings for Caleb in the office one-on-one with Hubert Davis. And this is one of the big differences between college basketball. And Hubert alluded to how freshmen being asked to lead now. It's a lot different than when he was a freshman back in the late 80s at Carolina.
I think the biggest is they are called to be leaders. I was not called to be a leader my freshman year. As I mentioned before, in college, all of us stayed 4 years, and that leadership role was almost passed down the line. And so when I was a freshman, it was, Jeff Lebo, Steve Bucknell. Those were leaders of our team. I think now with, the transfer portal and guys going into the NBA, the most important thing is you have leaders. and it doesn't matter what classification they are. One of the things that I always say is I want you to be a leader within your own personality. And so I think in regards to Caleb and Derek, they've done that within their own personality. It doesn't have to come in a vocal leader or leader by example, but both of them have embraced and felt comfortable and confident enough to do it within their own personality.
Player-led teams, that's the new buzzword you hear from coaches. Mac Brown said it his whole time during his second stint as Carolina's football coach, and Hubert Davis has alluded to it as well. And that's also a difference in the sport, where because especially in college basketball, your coaches have been the face of your sport or the sport for really since the sport became really popular in the 70s and the 80s. Well, that was your leadership, was Dean, Kay, Roy, Wooden, Calipari, Izzo, whoever you want to name theirself. The list goes on and on. But as we've become more player focused and player centric and player friendly, well, with that, there's got to be some leadership demands as well. You'll never turn away a leader by example. Vocal leadership is the best kind of leadership. And the fact that Caleb Wilson felt empowered to know coming back from the West Coast, by God, I got to lead more, shows you just that this kid's made of the right stuff, because he knows he's Carolina's best player, but he's got to do more than just score 20 and 10. He's got to lead and demand stuff from others. And I thought it was very impactful too when, Henri Veesaar had a couple of bad possessions against Virginia. And who's there busting his chops is Derek Dixon. And I think it's important to remember, just because you're seeing guys barking at each other doesn't mean that they don't like each other, doesn't mean that they don't get along, doesn't mean that there's locker room issues. You're just trying to get the best out of one another. I mean, y'all might not believe it, but Anthony and I have those same things. Been best friends for 16 years. We run a podcast and a blog together. But there are times where I snap at him. There's times that he snaps at me. But we're trying to get the best out of one another. And so, for Carolina, it's different because how many times has a freshman been your best player in the last 15, 20 years? Not many, but with that comes the leadership and that responsibility. And I think it's cool to see Caleb and Derek embracing this and willing to lead with their voice just as much as they lead with their play on the court. Speaking of Derek Dixon, that's where we'll go next, as Hubert Davis addressed how his freshman point guard is acclimating to becoming, the starter for Carolina basketball.
Well, I will say that, Derek, and it goes to the, in line with, he's a very confident player in person, and his poise out there on the floor, whether it's starting or coming off the bench, has been real, and it's been evident, it's been consistent all throughout the year. Been really proud of his approach, specifically over the last 3 games, and has done a nice job taking care of the basketball. He's confident, being able, from an offensive standpoint, to be able to make plays. And, as I mentioned before, his leadership qualities in regards to speaking up and being more vocal has something that I've noticed over the last 3 weeks, and it just continues to grow.
We're really, really lucky that Hubert was able to make the switch and it wasn't too late. And it wasn't something that we identified, hey, like last year when it took until game 27 to find the best lineup that worked for the team. Look, should the switch have been made after Kentucky, Georgetown? You could argue that answer is yes. There's still a very good chance that Carolina is still exactly where they are, 16-4, 4-3 in the league. The one thing you got to like about Derek, and it's one of the things I like about him, love about him, is there's a toughness and a confidence that you have to play here, and he has it. And the moment isn't too big, the demands aren't too high, and you can tell he doesn't care about me, he cares about we. And he's going to do what he feels like he has to do to help the team win. Not for Derek Dixon to win, but for Carolina basketball, for Hubert Davis to emerge successful. And so he's getting more and more comfortable. He's getting more and more confident. Had 11-7 in the game at Virginia. I thought unlocked something really good for Carolina with their transition offense, with that rim running stuff. Something that was a given for this program back when Tyler Zeller was here was your big was going to run to the front of the rim, and we would get 6, 8, 10 points a night off of that. And you got 6, 8 points against Virginia, helps complete the comeback. He unlocked that. That stuff's not happening, I think, with Kyan Evans on the floor. And so it's been really fun watching him kind of grow and mature as a guy that was coming off the bench, now has been moved into the starting role, and he knows just how important he's going to be here down the stretch of ACC play. Speaking of Kyan Evans, something we keep talking about a lot is the need for him. And while Derek's emergence has been beneficial, Carolina's going to need Kyan Evans to provide some perimeter shooting for this team to get wherever it is they want to go in the regular season. And once we get into conference and NCAA tournament play, and Hubert Davis was asked and went into a real detailed answer about trying to find more comfort for Kyan Evans on the floor.
Yeah, my conversations with him, every player goes through a stretch at times where they're trying to find the rhythm. And I talked about fighting to get that rhythm. For me as a player, one of the things that I shared with him was to always take it off of making a shot. I wanted to take my focus off of that and try to find many other ways to try to impact and help the team, whether it's a loose ball, box out, talking on defense, being encouraging in the huddle, anything that can uplift my teammates and help our team put them in a position to be able to be successful. And when you do that, you take your eyes off of, quote unquote, a free throw or a shot, that allows you to focus on all parts of the game, and eventually your shot starts to go in. And Kyan is an established, accomplished player in college, and I'm so thankful that he's here at Carolina, and he's done a really nice job impacting winning in a number of different areas out there on the floor, and looking forward to when he's knocking down multiple threes as well.
And hopefully that starts this weekend. Look, y'all know how I feel about Kyan Evans. That was my dude. And in the summertime, I was fighting the good fight, trying to tell you that Carolina had found a difference maker in the backcourt position. So far, I've been proven to be wrong, been proven to be incorrect. But what I'm not wrong about, what we're not incorrect about, is the need for what he was brought in to do to show up in a big way. If he could start to shoot 37, 38% from three and make 2, 3 threes a night off the bench, it's going to be life-changing for Carolina. It's going to be so much – it's going to make Carolina's second unit that much more valuable. It'll make Carolina that much harder to defend in the half court. And a lot of guys will benefit from him. I think what you have to like is through the ups, that he's had some ups, but through the downs, he's shown up and he's fought and he's competed. There has never been a game where I've looked at Kyan Evans' body language and thought he checked out. There's never been a game where I thought he didn't want to be on the court trying to help Carolina win a ball game. Couldn't say that about Elliot Cadeau, man. And look, I know Ellie's having a fantastic year at Michigan, and it's been a lot of fun watching him in Dusty May's offense. But there were times last year that the noise got too much. The pressure, the demands, going back to the first cut from Hubert about how hard it is to play here. I think Elliot Cadeau got overwhelmed by it, and it impacted his play and it impacted his attitude. I haven't gotten that from Kyan Evans yet, and it's why I'm still rooting for him. And it's why I'm stressing that we need him to be the player he was brought in to be. And the sooner that guy shows up, the sooner you'll see Carolina really hit another gear as an offensive basketball team. A few more quotes to go, and then we'll get out of this edition of the podcast. Caleb Wilson's defense, has been praised for what he can do when Carolina full court presses. He was very active with his hands, getting in the passing lanes in the game at Virginia. And Hubert Davis was just talked about how his length and his athleticism has helped Carolina on the defensive end of the floor.
Yeah, I always believe, for him, and especially coming from high school to college, like high school is defense when your man gets the ball. there's more to that. At this level, one of the things that I always tell the guys is you have, in order to play defense, you have to play defense before you play defense. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I said, you have to be ready and alert and aware that something is always coming. There's never a time in a possession, even if your man is on the weak side, that you're not involved in action, you're not in the mix. And I think Caleb, every day this year, has gotten better at understanding that he's always in the mix, whether it's a primary defender, a help defender, secondary defender, and he's doing a really good job embracing that.
How does it kind of change what you guys can do when he's out in passing lanes and can be that rim protector and kind of get you extra opportunities there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously his length can block and alter shots. You've seen the effect that he's had when, we pick up full court and press. It's very difficult to be able to, he can get steals, he can get deflections. He's good on the ball getting steals. It's really the awareness and the readiness, especially off the ball, that has improved a lot since the beginning of the year. And when you have somebody 6'10", 6'11" that can move his feet and do those things, it obviously helps you out defensively.
And that effectiveness is why I want you to full court press more, is why I want you to run and jump more. I want you to trap ball screens, et cetera, because he is so active and he does impact the game in that way. The ball watching has to improve. And look, he's come a long way. Hubert's not lying. I got someone tweeting at me the other day that said, well, why don't you ever call out Caleb Wilson for the defensive lapses? I don't know if you listen to the pod. I hope you do, Thomas. I'll do it for you right now. Yeah, it has to improve, man. Like when you look at some of the possessions where Carolina just loses track of a perimeter shooter, it 7 times out of 10 because Caleb Wilson is watching the ball, not watching the action. And that's what Hubert Davis is saying by you got to play defense before you have to play defense. In high school, you play defense when the ball gets to you. In college, you've got to defend the action that's going to open up for maybe the ball to get to you. So you've got to take away whatever it is, whether they're running some Spain, some Zoom, whatever it is, you've got to be alert to that to take that stuff away. And I think you've seen him take a step forward, but there's another level for him to get to defensively, for him to really become a legitimate elite defensive maker. That's probably the biggest difference between him and Boozer from Duke, is if you watch Boozer, he doesn't have those defensive lapses while still impacting the game the way that he does. Great rotator, great weak help side defender. Caleb Wilson is great when he's got him to guard the ball. And for the most part, he can hold his own out there on the perimeter, but it's really eliminating those lapses in the half court, watching the ball, that could really elevate himself individually and this team collectively on that end of the floor. All right, 2 more quotes and we'll get out of here for this edition of the podcast. Henri Veesaar coming off one of his more lackluster games against Virginia, but has emerged as a difference maker for Carolina on the glass. He averages just about 9 rebounds per game. And Hubert spoke about knowing that he was going to be a good rebounder when they brought him in from Arizona, but how he's seen him grow and develop specifically as an offensive rebounder.
That's a great question. I think, like, in comparison to, the years that he was at Arizona, I just know that he's a very instinctive rebounder. Does a really good job at understanding or where the ball may be going, his pursuit for the ball. But I really believe the area that's improved a lot for him is offensive rebounding. It's something that we stress 90 times a day. And so his ability to get to the offensive glass and get second chance opportunities has been huge for us. We just got to get everybody else involved.
That's the thing, man. You got 2 great rebounders. I want 3. To be fair, I want all 5 guys get into the boards, man. It's the most impactful thing in the game, outside, of course, putting the ball in the basket. But it's been really fun to watch, because as much national college hoops as I watch, I had an idea and a sense of who Henri Veesaar was, what he could be. The rebounding prowess, I did not think it would be to this level. And there are some games where he's 15, 16 boards. It looks like Armando where he's man in the paint. I think he does a really good job getting inside position, him go up in between a defender or two and get a ball. And so watching that's been a lot of fun. But like Hubert Davis said, it's got to be everybody. It's got to be a UNC rebounding game, not a C-Dub, not a Henri Veesaar rebounding game. One last quote, and it focuses on tomorrow's opponent. That's Georgia Tech. Of course, we all know that Carolina has 2 games at home next week. They're back in action at home on Monday against Syracuse. The big one, though, next Saturday in the Smith Center, the first of 2 matchups with the Duke Blue Devils. 2 years ago, Carolina went to Atlanta, lost to Georgia Tech right before they hosted Duke. And so Hubert Davis wanted to make it known that with 2 games before the Duke game still to go, this is by no means, in his eyes, a trap game.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't characterize it as a trap game at all. It's an ACC game against a worthy opponent that has our full attention, and they have our full attention because they're worthy of it. Georgia Tech is extremely well coached by Damon Stoudemire. We played 1 year together with the Toronto Raptors, so we've known each other a long time. Their team is really good in transition, getting to the bucket, shooting threes. Defensively, they change up many different looks, and they play extremely well at home. And so it'll be a challenge for us, but we're prepared and we're ready for that challenge.
Yeah, reminder, Georgia Tech 10-4 at home this year, and they've been really competitive against Tobacco Road schools. They lost at Duke by 6, and, of course, they won in Raleigh against NC State. We're going to find a lot about the maturity of this group tomorrow. You've had a week off coming off the big comeback win at Virginia where it feels like everyone's back on the wagon, everyone's back supporting you. How do you handle that? Do you rest on your laurels and you don't fight, you don't defend, rebound, close out, do whatever you got to do to win the game? Or do you do all those things and you overwhelm an opponent that you're bigger, faster, stronger, more gifted than? They're going to have to play hard. They're going to have to compete for 40 minutes because that's one thing about Georgia Tech is they're going to fight and they're going to compete for their head coach. But we're going to learn a lot about where this group's mentality is at. They go on the road and win, we can really start to build some trust with this group. They go on the road and lose, you get your first real bad loss of the year. I fear we'll be having similar conversations like we had after Stanford, after California, and I can assure you nobody, including myself, wants to be having those conversations. That's going to wrap it up, though, folks, for this edition of the Four Corners Podcast. In the meantime, we will direct you guys to the website, HeelToughBlog.com, where game coverage can and will be found tomorrow on the website. We'll have the preview up for you tomorrow morning, as we have been doing so during the season. Previews go up day of. We'll have the recap for you tomorrow evening with Carolina playing at 2 o'clock, barring that, this snowstorm is supposed to hit the Carolinas, doesn't, cause a power outage, something like that. We will have you covered with the preview and recap tomorrow as we continue to take you through the basketball season. If anything happens on the football side of things, we'll have you covered as well. We just want to keep encouraging you guys to visit our website. That's HeelToughBlog.com. We pour our hearts and soul into that just as much as we do the podcast, so you keep up to date with the latest with Carolina basketball and Tar Heel football. Speaking of the podcast, best way to keep up with us is to rate, review, and subscribe. You can find us anywhere you find your podcast. And why do you want to subscribe? Well, look at this week alone. Carolina, excuse me. Sorry about that, but why do you want to subscribe? Well, this week, Carolina, no midweek game, but we had a podcast every single day. We had Joel Berry interview on Monday, Ashton's analysis on Tuesday, Shelby Swanson interview on Wednesday. We took a look at the NCAA tournament projections on Thursday. Today, game preview, press conference recap as well. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, folks. That way you're not missing any edition of the show throughout the remainder of the season. If you're a video consumer, best way to keep up with us, like and follow the Facebook page at Heel Tough Blog. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Heel Tough Blog. Follow me on Twitter, HTB_Josh. The second we go live, you can jump in, be a part of the conversation. With that, folks, it is going to wrap up this edition of the show. I do want to thank everybody once again for watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.